A senior U.S. official telling Fox News the next round of Guantanamo Bay prisoners transfers will begin this week, with 2 detainees going to undisclosed countries in Africa. This, as the Wall Street Journal recently reported on the money trail and terrorism, how U.S. banking rules force money underground. Let's bring in former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainee Affairs, Cully Stimson, and Alex Sanchez is the president of the Florida Bankers Association. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
Cully, kick this off with you. Give us your estimation in terms of how this plays out with Guantanamo Bay prisoners. Where do they go?
Yeah, so there's 91 guys there now from 15 countries. 51 of them are from Yemen. So these 2, if they leave the island this week, will go to some African country. We'll find out after they land in these African countries where they go. And that country will have to mitigate the threat that those guys posed, like all the transfers that have gone off the island. But really, Guantanamo is closing by attrition. And I think the Obama administration's end game here is to get to an irreducible number, Maria, so that maybe 30, 40, 50 guys, and then go to Congress and say, look, we got to close this place, and we got to bring them here to do it. We'll see whether the political will is there to do that. I doubt it.
Obviously, there's an incredible amount of debate about this, which I want to zero in on. But, Alex, give us the money part of this angle, how money is pushing basically what's going on underground.
Right. No, Maria, look, our bankers are very patriotic. We filed 2 million suspicious activity reports just last year, 17 million since 2001. Obviously, 9/11 changed our world totally, including in our banks. Every time we see anyone of any suspicious activity, we let the FBI know through these SARs. But as you notice and seen, the federal banking regulators are having second thoughts on the strategy. Our banks have closed thousands upon thousands of accounts. They want nothing to do with because of the risk involved in the monitoring of it. Now this money's gone underground, and you cannot see it, check it out. And people, organizations like the FBI are very concerned. This money's overseas now. No one knows where it is. You saw that Journal article where...
Yeah, I was going to ask John about that, John. The Journal wrote about this.
2/3 of the U.S. currency circulates outside of the U.S., and the government has a very hard time keeping track of it. It's the lifeblood of a lot of the terror financing. We're having a very hard time right now figuring out what U.S. dollars are ending up in the hands of ISIS. So the question is, are we losing the money part of the anti-terror game?
Well, as far as our banks are concerned, John, I tell you, we're spending billions, tens of billions of dollars in monitoring systems. But the risk involved for us, we're not in law enforcement. We're doing the best job we can in trying to see who deposits these monies, where these monies come from. Believe me, when you open up an account today at a bank, they want to know everything where that money came from. And we can't monitor it, we close it. Yeah. We never open it. So now the federal banking regulators are thinking, gee, maybe our strategy has been too harsh because the FBI is telling them, we don't know where this money is now. That Journal article where that Somalian money transmitter is taking hundreds of thousands of dollars overseas to Dubai every month. Where's that money going?
But doesn't the FBI just need to be one step ahead of the criminals then? Because what about the argument that this is actually prudent for the financial system not to have this sort of illicit transactions going through it? I mean, I see that as a good thing for the formal financial sector not to have this money running through it.
I agree. And that's why Morgan went out doing it at all, even though obviously. But the real problem, let me tell you what the real problem is for BSA and Patriot Act issues, the Bank Secrecy Act. It's in Florida, for instance, it's homegrown mom and pop businesses of Americans that we've closed down in our banks that have nothing to do with any terrorist nation or terrorist region.
Well, then that sounds like a bad policy of a bank, not necessarily the government's problem.
Well, we're talking about 2 different things here, Cully, because we're trying to follow the money story, but we're also following the story of Guantanamo Bay closing. And there's this big debate as far as we don't know where these inmates are going to end up. A lot of states don't want them.
Well, that's true. Of course, Yemen wants the 51 Yemenis back, but there's really not a country for them to go back to that could secure them when they got there. And so, they've gone to dozens and dozens of countries. The Director of National Intelligence says that about 30% are confirmed or suspected to have gone back to terrorist activity. I'm sure the number is higher than that. We don't know what we don't know. And some number of these guys are finance guys. These guys know how to push money around because money is the lifeblood of a terrorist organization. Look what's happening with ISIS. ISIS is a shakedown artist everywhere they occupy. They take basically money from people who they control and keep taking money. And because our Treasury Department, FBI, and other folks have been very successful in cutting off a good bit of the money to ISIS, they're shaking people down for more money. So money is the lifeblood, to your comment.
So the Gitmo transfers are happening this week, and you think that, in fact, Guantanamo Bay will be closed down ultimately then?
Well, I don't know when it'll be closed, but the detention mission will eventually close down, whether it's on this administration's watch or the next administration's watch. But the fact is that we're still at war. We're in a state of armed conflict, and you can detain the enemy under the Geneva Convention for the duration of the hostilities. So if that war continues, we're going to have to continue to kill and, yes, capture some detainees. Where you put them, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Well, so, Cully, is this going to do the same thing that's happening with the money, drive these people that we're detaining offshore into the hands of third-party governments who are going to mistreat them even more than we did in Guantanamo?
Yeah, and that is the million-dollar question. That is the great point. If we stop getting in the business of capturing and detaining people, which we aren't doing on a grand scale like we used to, or we're transferring people, we catch them, we hold on to them for a short period of time, and then we let them go to other countries that have a very spotty human rights record, we are essentially transferring the risk of not only holding these guys, but also lowering the bar in terms of the human rights standards we're willing to treat other people. So it's just not a good scene.
All right, we will leave it there. Real quick, Alex Sanchez, Florida Bankers Association. Do you have a candidate? People are talking about the Hispanic community in particular as it relates to Donald Trump.
Well, we are, obviously, we had two of our home stars in the campaign, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio.
Are you now a Ted Cruz guy?
Well, let's talk about that another day.
Can I ask you about the real estate market? Is it coming back down there? Is your economy coming back?
Yes. So, I mean, the real estate market in Florida, I think our developers have been stronger and smarter this time, John, because of the no more 10%, 5% down. Most of these transactions have been 40, 50% down to make sure that people buying these condos do not walk away and they have skin in the game. So
you're going to promise us we're not going to have another bubble?
Wouldn't that be nice if we could actually make that kind of promise? Alex Sanchez, good to see you, sir.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much.